Previously on Sex Party.
Who the fuck is telling all of us to not like these things or not feel this way?
Yeah, I'm kinky. I go to sex parties. And then you have a threesome that way. I live by my Google Calendar. Swinging or non-monogamy.
Where does someone start with non-monogamy?
And now, the conclusion. Sex Party with your host, Dustin Rybka.
Hello and welcome to Sex Party. I'm your host, Dustin Rybka. This is episode 12. This is the conclusion of my interview of a two-part series with Cami and Niki from the Double Teamed podcast. If you haven't listened to the previous episode, which was episode 11, go back and listen to that first, or else it's still going to be fun, but you're not going to get the whole picture. And I want you to have the whole picture always. This one is a little wilder. We talk about knife play. We talk about impact play, pet play. Niki and Cami take us inside of a real sex party, what that's like. We compare a sex party with an orgy. There's some discussion about gummy bears and chocolate covered peanuts. I think you guys are going to love it. Check out my conversation, part 2, with Niki and Cami.
This week's conversation.
So there are definitely lots of resources out there, and I think it's like important for people to start with like books and podcasts, just like familiarize yourself with non-monogamy, and kind of grow to understand it before you really dive into it. I think a lot of us, especially if that started this years ago, probably started first and then found all the sources. So I think now that there are more sources out there, it's good for people to start with those first and then start applying it to their lives. For books, there's The Ethical Slut is a classic. Polysecure is a really good one. Stepping Off the Relationship Escalator. I'm trying to think of. There's a essay. It's pretty short. It's called The Most Skipped Steps When Opening Up. That one I really like as well. Those are just a couple of a ton of really good ones out there. If you put books about, if you Google books about non-monogamy and polyamory, like a ton will come up. But obviously, like The Ethical Slut is like, the holy grail where probably most of us started. Sex at Dawn is also really good. That one's more about like, sexuality and just questioning monogamy in general. But that's one that I really liked. As far as podcasts go, obviously there's ours, Double Team Podcast.
Yeah.
But some other really good ones. There's Multi-Amory. That one's been around for years. I didn't know about that one until very recently. Maybe about a year ago I learned about that one. They've got a shit ton of episodes, so it's kind of hard to, it really depends on what you're looking for, but they've got a lot of really good information on there. We interviewed a girl who had a podcast called Poly Pages. They talk about like books and academia in polyamory. There's a bunch of swinging podcasts. What is it? There's Front Porch Swingers, Swinging Down Under, and there's a ton. So like I would say, go to Google, search engine, whatever, look up books and podcasts about polyamory. You can also hop on like Instagram and TikTok and find some influencers in the space.
Right.
So there's Polyphilia Blog, Poly Pages, Pursuit of Poly.
Yep.
God, there's so many. There's just so many.
Yeah.
But yeah,
and we follow a lot of them. So if you go to our page and you go to who we follow, you'll see a lot of the Poly pages. I would also say, if you're gonna hop on the apps and you're looking for, being open or non-monogamy, just, put it on your bio what you're looking for. You really got to be transparent on there. If you're looking for like new apps, you can always try like Feeld, F-E-E-L-D. That one's for like kinksters and non-monogamists. And they're, the app itself kind of lags. It's not the best, but that's where people go. And, there's a little bit more intent and openness as to what they're searching for.
Sure.
There's also like FetLife, That's more kinky.
Yeah, but you can also join, like, there's Facebook groups,
Reddit groups.
there's Reddit groups where you can find, like, local non-monogamous or local poly groups in your area. So there's actually, like, a ton of resources out there. You really have to look for it.
Right.
For anyone starting out, I would say kind of do that self-work a little bit. Why do you want to do this? What are you hoping to accomplish? What are you hoping to explore?
What are your values?
What are your
in a
values?
relationship? Yeah.
Yeah.
What values are you looking for in other people? And then, take to the books, take to the podcast, get on the dating apps. If you're out and about, I always say just make sure, have an open conversation, but also, vet properly,
Right.
read the room.
Right. Very
I mean, it's
important.
important.
Yeah.
Really, take the time to, especially
Understand it.
to understand it, especially, as a new person wanting to try it out, don't get too eager right away.
Right.
I think everyone makes that mistake. Slow down, make sure you understand it all. And then especially if you're entering it as a couple, if the both of you are going into some form of non-monogamy together, start slow. Start really
Yeah.
fucking slow.
For sure.
Get
Okay.
STD tested frequently.
Yeah. That's
Right?
always good. Yeah.
Like have a quarterly plan or something. I think that's important.
So let's get a little crazier with all of this stuff. This is a 2-part episode after all. So I'm wondering if you each can give me like some of the crazier moments in your non-monogamous lives. Lives. Stuff that you've been like, man, I'm really glad that I am practicing non-monogamy because this is awesome.
I'd have to think on it. I've obviously had a lot of moments where I've just been happy, obviously, with the choices that I've made. I don't know, man. I'd have to think on that. Like, obviously,
It's a tough
currently, I have different partners at any given moment. And don't get me wrong, it has its ups and downs, like in anything.
I bet.
I always say, monogamy is hard, non-monogamy is hard, being single is hard. Like, you really got to choose which one you like the most, but it's still going to be hard. Probably a really shining moment for me was one time I went to a sex party with my husband, his girlfriend, my girlfriend was there, and then like half the people at that party I'd already hooked up with. It was a really fun night, like just a phenomenal experience. Everyone was having fun, but all together. Like, I remember my husband and I were having sex right next to like my girlfriend and some dude that she was with. And then his girlfriend was like watching. So that was just like a really fun night because it was just like a mix of people that are in my life, and we're all just enjoying time together and having fun and being really open and free with each other. That's probably a really fun memory for me.
Right. Cami, you're up.
Well, I mean, that's hard to answer for me since I'm not really like practicing non-monogamy so much. I
Right.
would say definitely like, I started attending sex parties this past year as I, ventured more into kink and the non-monogamy world, and that opened my eyes to so much, but also I just felt very grateful to be able to see people open up in that way. Sex parties
Right.
are fun. Everybody's not everybody, but a lot of people are hooking up, or maybe they're just watching other people, or there's a performance going on, and I just felt very like happy to be there. Like, I'm really glad I allow myself the chance to experience one of these. Like, I'm not closing myself off to it because I like being a voyeur. I love watching, so it's always fun getting the live play-by-play rather than just like watching porn or something. So
Right.
I would say it's crazy moments for sure.
Well, that tees us up perfectly for the next piece of this episode. So take us inside a sex party, on sex party. Take us inside a sex party. How do you get invited? Who throws them? What is there food? What's it? What's it? I have no idea. What's it like? How often do you go?
Have you ever been to one? You've never been?
I've been to something that people would call a sex party, but it was not a sex party.
I
So
always
no, I've
say
never been to.
you got to make the distinction. So there's threesomes, foursomes, fivesomes, 6 to
Yeah.
20 orgy, 21 plus. That's a sex party, in my opinion.
Okay.
Because there's definitely a difference between an orgy and a sex party. Those look completely different.
Well, what's the difference?
So, because an orgy is usually like everyone's hooking up together. It's more like cohesive.
It's like a Roman orgy, you know?
Yeah. Whereas
Anything goes kind of thing?
yeah, at a sex party, it's usually like it's a party, and people are off doing their own things if they choose to. And so like sex is happening, but it's not a requirement. I feel like at an orgy, like if there's 10 people having sex and you're just sitting there watching, like it's gonna be a little different, So
Like, can you help us out here? What are you doing? Yeah.
yeah. But we've been to a variety, so like house parties that are sex parties. So that I met a couple on Tinder who hosts these really phenomenal sex parties. So I went out to dinner with them, got to know them, and then they've been inviting me to their parties ever since. Cami's been to them too. We're really good friends with them. There are also clubs that host sex parties. So depending on where you live, bigger cities have quite a few of them usually, but
Yeah.
you can also find them in smaller cities as well. But so clubs, and they'll host events at whatever frequency they host them at, and it's just like I said, a normal party. But when you go, sex is available, can happen, doesn't have to happen. You can go to watch, but yeah, some of them have
Yeah.
food, not all of them.
I petition that there's more food.
There's always drinks, but like there's not a lot of food.
I remember we went to one. We went to one here in LA, and I loved it because they had this tiny little snack bar that had these like chocolate covered pretzels and chocolate covered peanuts and things like that, or cashews and almonds. And I was like beside myself. Oh, little like gummy bears. I was beside myself because I was so happy there was food. There was also a weed station right next to it too. Like if you wanted a little vape pen.
Yeah.
That was right next to it. But I mean, yeah, usually like if you're going to like one of the club ones, usually you do
you have to apply.
Yeah, let's say you find one in your area. Normally if it's hosted by a club, you have to apply sometime before, and then when you get accepted, then they'll whenever they have tickets for their upcoming party, you'll get like the email or something like that. I mean, usually when you walk into a sex party, everybody's wearing like an array of outfits. Some women are just wearing lingerie, some of them are wearing dresses. The men are usually like in suits.
Sometimes there are themes, so it just depends on like if there's a theme.
So sometimes, there might be a theme. Maybe everyone's wearing like nice pajamas or something like that.
There's usually like a gathering area where like people can just like mingle and talk and have fun, and then like there are separate rooms where people can go into if they want to have like fun.
Yeah, there's usually a DJ. There's usually like performers of a sort. So, usually they have performers like maybe walking around or interacting with each other as a performance, things like that. So usually, I mean, I like it. It's a very dynamic environment, I would say.
Very open.
Yeah, sounds like it.
Yeah, I especially like it like when the venues have like a pool or an outside area, to go lounge by. And then usually people are talking and mingling, or, maybe everyone's gathered around like a St. Andrew's cross watching someone get flogged. So yeah, things like that. I would say it's usually pretty, and people are pretty open, and
it's fun.
Having like good discussions. So that's always fun. Sometimes they're maybe talking about, like their careers, or maybe they're talking about, how long they've been a sub for, or something like that.
Right. So people are being whipped and everyone's like making out with each other and Cammy's eating gummy bears. Is basically what we got out of that. And chocolate covered peanuts.
Yeah,
And,
I mean,
oh my
maybe not
god.
everybody's making out, but I mean, yeah, some
You know
people
what?
are,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah,
because
the go ahead,
oh,
sorry.
God. I was going to say
Uh
you have the exhibitionists and then you have the voyeurs. So some people are playing, some people are watching.
right. Yeah, yeah. The one I went to was at a club. It was billed as like a sex party. There was like no fucking vetting. No one fucking, had to be, on the list. None of that. It was like a cover. It was in some like dusty, like warehousey club, and the place like I think there was like two girls that like got it on in front of everybody or something, right? In the basement or something. And then the place got fucking raided. Like FBI like raided like everybody like when we ran from it. Yeah, I was like I don't know, I was like
What?
20 or something. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah. So, I mean, that was in Ohio, so I'm sure they're like, well, goddamn sex party in my town or whatever, right? Um, well, okay, and then have you guys gone to an orgy before? Have you been to an orgy before?
I have, yeah. It was for Christmas Eve, actually. It was a
Okay.
Christmas Eve orgy. Yeah, they're fun. If I remember. It was actually a pretty small group. It was like maybe 10 of us. We started off with like just mingling and stuff. There was sexy Jenga. And then after that, it just kind of went from there. But yeah, there was also a really fun experience. Sorry to hear that yours got raided. I think a really key thing is vetting the place that's
Right.
hosting the sex party and vetting whether it's like a
Yeah.
house party or a club, like do some vetting, see if they have a website. You can probably go on like Reddit and see like and type in, whatever your city is, like the name of the club, and just be like, has anyone gone and what's your experience been like?
Right.
Chances are someone's been to it and they can tell you all about it.
Sure.
So I really highly recommend that to people. But yeah, orgies are also equally fun. I think I prefer sex parties just because I like to have a little bit more freedom to just like walk around and do whatever, and I like when there's like just more variety.
Yeah, because an orgy just sounds like it's sort of, I mean, it feels like it's something you see in porn a lot, right? Or like, um, it's not a gangbang, 'cause that's totally a different fucking
Yeah.
thing. So, but it's like the same sort of dynamic, I would think. It's like crowd mentality sort of fucking thing. There's not many gummy bears at a fucking orgy.
I mean,
So,
let's not.
There's food. Yeah, the one I went to actually had a great food. Yeah, they had a lot of snacks. So. But yeah, I mean, you just, you want to make sure you go to a place with a good environment.
right.
Lots of fun. But I do like places that vet, because I think, then they can understand like the crowd coming in. And I think that's really important if you're going to be mixing sex and alcohol and a party.
Yeah, I mean, in my experience, it was like, something I was in college in my little hometown or whatever. I've been to some things here in Chicago that I kind of got the vibe. There's other things going on, or I saw with my own two eyes, like just hammered or something. Like, oh, okay, cool, like whatever. Like I've been to, but I've never like uh set up something or participated in something that was like professionally done. No Google calendars were involved in anything that I've ever been to. Just to bring that fucking joke back again. Okay, so some of the other things you guys talk about on the show, on your show, Double Teamed, that are in your life, your sex lives, like impact play. Can we talk about impact play? Because I feel like that's sort of, I don't want to say it's new, right? But I feel like now it's starting to gain traction in the mainstream a little bit. So you want to talk about that?
Uh,
Maybe talk about some of your personal experience.
Yeah, so basically, it's like a kink. So impact play is basically like hitting, and that can look like, spanking or flogging, or, if you're using like a riding crop. So some people like that, some people enjoy it, so they choose to like partake in it. I think we both have experience with impact play. I personally really like it. It's definitely something that you want to discuss beforehand with someone. Like, hey, I like to be, hit in whatever way. So whether that's like slapped across the face or like hit with a flogger on your ass or whatever that looks like, it's good to discuss it beforehand with your partner. Tell them, what form of impact play you're interested in. If you have any of the tools like readily available for it, like a flogger or a whip or a paddle, those kind of things, kind of get familiar with them, understand how to use them, those things. And then, have the discussion of what you want it to look like. And then when you're having sex or when you're like playing with these things, have fun, be safe with it. Like I said, it's really important to understand like how to use these things, because I've been to parties before where people are like, well, I've never used a flogger. And I'm like, okay, well, here, let me show you how.
Right.
And I definitely always love the opportunity to be able to show someone like what that looks like. Because I definitely remember the first time I ever used a flogger. And, that was a lot of fun. So,
Well, talk about that. Talk about that experience.
that was actually, I'm trying to think, because like I've used other forms of like other tools, like I've used riding crops before I ever used a flogger, or like my hand. But I was actually playing with a guy who was a submissive, and he brought like a bag of all the things that he had, and he pulled out the flogger and he was like, have you ever used one? And I'm like, no. And he was like, okay, this is how you use it. So like you can either kind of like crack it like a whip, or you can use like the sensation of it and just like run the strings like along someone's like back or whatever. And then like for, he kind of showed me like the movement that you want to like aim for when you're hitting someone with it. So then he got on all fours on the bed, and then I just started flogging him, and it was a lot of fun. So I think the thing about impact play, you want to warm up the body. So like you want to warm someone up with your hand beforehand. So kind of get the area a little bit primed and ready to go, get the skin ready for it, because if you just start hitting someone with like a whip or a flog or even your hand right away without any sort of a warm up, like it really hurts and it stings. Some people like the pain, I like the pain, but like it is nice to have like a little bit of a warm up.
Use your
Right.
safe words.
Yeah, figure out like if you want to have a system, it's like, hey, this is too much. If it's too much, I'm gonna say yellow, and I need you to slow down, or if I need you to stop, I'm gonna say red, and then you'll stop when I say red. Things like that. So like you want to have a plan to be able to communicate, how you're liking the experience. And if you're the one doing the hitting, then you want to make sure that along the way you're checking in with the person that you're hitting and see, how they like it and how they're doing with it. So yeah, that's impact play.
I usually prefer just a good old over the knee thinking session for my impact play. I've been wanting to use a flogger. I'm looking for a very specific one that I saw at a sex party that I really want to use. But usually I just I stick to hands and belts. Belts are really
Belts are fun. Belts
Yeah.
are stingy.
belts are stinky. They're very. It's like when you're using a cane, you have to be very careful. You have to know how to utilize them. Thankfully, my partner, when he uses the belt on me, he knows how I like it. So, you know, it generally goes well. It's not like too painful. But impact play is super fun. It's also like one of the. I would say it's probably one of the kinks that kind of gets you into the kink world.
Right.
It's like the gateway.
Yeah, it's like a good gateway. Because there's a lot of levels to it. And what tools you're using, the intensity. So it's a good warm up. I personally like when I go to sex parties, I love watching other people get flogged. That's something that I greatly enjoy. Or using like a paddle. That's always fun.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like I've had lots of conversations about like slapping and all of those things, right? It seems pretty common. There's a couple of people that have told me, "Oh, I like to be punched," like that sort of thing was more hardcore. And then like more recently, I just saw on another podcast that there's like some really hardcore impact play. Like these girls, and I didn't think it was real at first. They were talking about how they like bottles broken over their fucking heads and shit. And I'm like, that seems like and they were real bottles. Upon further inspection, they were real bottles. And I was like, what the fuck? That seems like a lot, right? So I think when people hear that, they might think, oh my God, that's crazy. But you guys just clearly defined it as, start slow, start small, right?
I mean, everything is a spectrum, you know, so it really just depends on where you lie on that spectrum. So whether, you know, if you're starting off with a hand, that's like on the far left side of the spectrum, and then you've got like bottles and, you know, whatever else on the right side of the spectrum, like figure out where you lie in that.
Yeah.
Right.
Because I mean, like especially when you talk about kink, you know, for some dom sub dynamics, like a cane is punishment, right? But a hand or a flogger is fun, you know. So it's all about, you know, defining that. Especially like if you're going to go in to, you know, sex with a partner that you want them to hit you. First of all, make sure that your partner, like, have that talk, have that communication. Like, this is what I like. You maybe do some demonstrations of like how you like it done, you know, and set out those boundaries, all that good stuff. And then also just, I mean, definitely make sure it's someone that you truly, truly trust. Um, you know, because you
Right.
are giving them that, you know, that key. So make sure they're going to take care of the car.
Right. Yeah. Don't scratch it up too much. I mean, come on. Okay. And then speaking of scratching it up, knife play, right? Nikki, you have experience with that, correct?
Yeah. I
So
always
can we
laugh.
talk about that, please? Yeah, because that's a little. So now we've gone up another level. I feel like, right?
Yeah, no, knife play is definitely not for everyone. And it's definitely not something that I recommend people to like just jump into right away. Um, Years ago, well, a couple years ago, I was reading a book, and in the book, one of the characters liked to play not with knives like during sex. So he would like, you know, he would pull out knives while him and the girl were having sex and do like a variety of things. And I remember as I was reading that, I was like, this is really hot. I was like, I really like this. I was like super turned on by it. So whenever I met my two doms, last year, I told them about it, and they were like, well, let's give it a try. And obviously they're two people that I trust very, very much.
Right.
I would not honestly, like, I can only think of like three people that I would partake in knife play with, because it's, like I said, it takes a lot of trust. Basically what it is, you take like a knife or something sharp, a dagger, whatever, you run it along the body, along the areas um, that feel good. Obviously you have to stay very still for it because you don't want to get cut. It's not about cutting. It can be, you know, maybe for some people they like to take it that far. They like to maybe like push the boundaries of the skin a little bit, and that's fine. For me, I don't like it, but for others, like knife play could involve cutting. But personally for me, I just like the sensation of it. Most recently, I remember the last time we did knife play with my doms, they tied me up in rope, and then he was using the very, very, very tip of the knife to play with my clit. And then
That makes me.
it actually felt fucking amazing. It felt so good. And then after that,
The precision you have to have with that, I would be so scared. I'd be terrified.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I trust them to do it, and they do a good job with it. So that's definitely one of the more extreme kinks, and something that you want to heavily discuss beforehand, and be with someone that you trust and someone that will know how to handle that correctly. I'm sure there are resources out there for people if they're interested in the sensation of it.
Hopefully they're not a spaz either or clumsy.
I have these
Or drunk,
claws,
right?
like,
After the bar.
yeah, no, this is something I do sober. Well, I've always been sober when I've done it. But I also have these claws that are made by a knife maker that I get, and so you can put those claws on and then run them along the body. Those, every time I take them over to dude's house, everyone loves them. So those I highly recommend. But yeah, that's knife play.
Yeah, and also then that's sort of also in the play hemisphere, there's all different kinds, right? You guys have talked about like animal play. Would it be animal play with like the butt plugs with like the tails and all of that? What is that called?
Pet play. So pet play, it's another form. It's like role play. So maybe you're like a little bunny or a kitten or a puppy.
Like you have the ears and the tail.
Or maybe mittens. There's a variety of ways. Collar and leash is another way to, you know, for pet play. Though, I mean, collar and leash can be used in other aspects of BDSM unrelated to pet play, but pet play can involve collar and leash. With that one, you know, you have your owner or your master, and then you're their, little pet. And then obviously you two discuss what that looks like, what that role play situation is going to look like. So
Right.
I remember one time I met a submissive. It was at that orgy, the Christmas Eve orgy. So she liked to be a kitten. And so when her and I were like playing, she would like purr and just kind of act like a little kitten. And, we had a lot of fun with it. So, it's really about, personifying the pet situation and then trusting your owner or your master to take care of you as their pet.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and like the tails, like they're like actual butt plugs, right? But they have a tail coming off of it, and you can choose like what animal or what fairy tale,
Yeah, and it
whatever,
doesn't
right?
always have to be a butt plug tail. Sometimes a tail is just a tail.
Yeah.
Right. Sometimes the tail's just a tail.
Yeah. There's the fun toys that you can incorporate into it, like Nikki said, like if you're using a collar or maybe you're using like a foxtail butt plug, something like that. Pet play is something that, maybe you're role playing, but and also in BDSM, like some people do take it like 24/7 or on more serious levels. It all just depends on like what dynamic you like to
Explore
with it. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So would you guys say, and you can answer separately, would you guys say then, not just in the pet play, but just in general, right? Are you more dominant, submissive, or is it dominant with certain partners, submissive with others? Or like, what is your, just in general overall? Because I know it's got to probably,
My answer is probably simpler. I'm a sub.
yeah,
That's what I've explored. I don't know that I want to explore dominance, but I greatly enjoy being like a little submissive, which is more like playing in with like my inner child. Like I like having a daddy dom,
right.
to take on that caregiver role. So that's something that I love to explore in sex and in my like dynamic as a sub when I find a partner that who is a daddy dom as well. Um, so yeah, that's my answer.
I would say I'm more of a switch. So I like to be a submissive and a dominant. There are certain partners that I am a submissive to, and then other partners that I'm dominant with. It really just depends on the energy. Obviously, like I said, I have two doms, so I'm their submissive. I'm their third. They're a female, or they're a couple, male and female. Um, and I'm definitely submissive with them through and through. And then, like I said, I have other partners that I'm dominant with. Um,
Right.
and that can be both male or female. So I like to explore both sides of it. But yeah, in any dynamic, it's not just pet play, which actually, and I don't think either of us really have much experience with pet play.
Right.
But like in any dynamic, whether it's dominance and submission or other forms of kinks,
Like top bottom.
yeah, all that, like you can identify as like one or the other, or like a switch being both dominant and sub.
Yeah. Okay. And so having, how many partners do you have? Like active partners do you have, Nikki, currently at the moment? Do you want to check your phone?
So, well, we'll say somewhere between like it because it rotates, it changes. Some of them are very casual, and I only see them every once in a while. Like, I
Right.
have some partners that I see very regularly, and then I have other partners that I see very sporadically, and it's more like a friendship. And every once in a while, we explore fun things. But probably around 7 to 8.
Okay, 7 to 8. So most people are exhausted from one relationship. Just being real, right? Like most people are just like, I can't do it. I need a break or whatever, right? So
Well,
I
everyone's exhausted because no one knows how to communicate.
thank you. Yes. So there's that. But I'm wondering if, because most people be like, oh, it's got to be really exhausting. That's like the way that most people I feel would think. And like from the outset, right in the beginning, I'd be like, oh, that's fucking crazy. That's a lot of people, right? But then thinking more in depth into it, I feel like it would be less of a taxing mental thing sometimes because you are like compartmentalizing. Is that right? Or am I totally off?
Yeah, no, I mean, like I said, it's different for everyone. Majority of these are very casual relationships, so they don't take a lot of like, I would say, emotional energy to maintain. So
Yeah.
quite a few of them, like, are like I said, they're friendships, but they involve sex. And so like I make time for them occasionally. They make time for me occasionally. It's a very fluid thing. Like there's not a lot of structure, so it's very easy to keep up with. And then I do have some of my relationships that are a little bit more structured. We make more time for each other and stuff like that. I don't have any relationships right now that are like super, super serious in the sense that like, we're trying to like build to, getting a house and moving in together and all those things. Like most of my relationships right now are for the most part pretty casual, intimate and emotional, but mostly, kind of like low pressure. So that's what makes it easy. It's like it's not as if I'm focusing on these relationships in a way like all of them are going to end up, at these really high places. So, and it's a variety of men and women. So like women I find are pretty easy to have relationships with because they communicate so much. And so like, where they stand. My male partners, I feel like pretty good communication with them. But like I said, just, mostly sporadic. So yeah,
Man,
just
yeah.
really
I
depends on
mean,
the nature of the relationship.
sure. Yeah, and
Well, even if you are casual, you still have emotional intimacy with some of them.
Oh no, I absolutely have emotion. Like I would say, more than half. Like there's emotional intimacy there,
yeah.
definitely. But yeah, but people have to understand. Like it really just depends on the nature of the relationship and like how you negotiate, like what you want out of it. Those things. If I had more like serious relationships, I'd probably have far less partners.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, totally. It makes complete sense. That's why I wanted to sort of dissect it a little bit so people could get an idea. It's because usually, like, people just go with their gut assumption on stuff like this. I feel like I'm
Mm-hmm.
guilty of that too. And so I kind of want to shatter that a little bit and be like, see, if you think about it, actually, um, yeah, I mean, you're going to fit right in Congress with 8 partners. I mean, perfect. Um, okay, so twin sisters double team podcast. How many times has a man or a woman tried to like take you both to bed at the same time, tried to have sex with both of you? Like, how many times does that fucking happen? Like some drunken lady in a. Is it
Well,
more
I would say
dudes or women or?
it's always been dudes. We've never been hit on by a girl. Surprisingly enough, the one person that we've both kissed is a girl. Um, but otherwise, yeah, a lot of dudes ask us if we would do things together. We never have, never will. Um, but I mean, the thing there is like, if Cammy's had sex with a dude, automatically I don't want to have sex with
Right.
them, and I
Yeah.
don't. It's like a brother now. Like that's how I look at them.
You're a
And I think
brother
it's
now.
yeah,
Sorry.
Yeah.
yeah. We always joke like if a guy matches with the both of us on a dating app, then we'll be like, okay, pick one, and then that's it. Like the other is completely off the table from here on out.
Yep.
We'll give them the choice, unless one of us is like dibs. Then dibs.
Yeah,
But that's
makes
how it
sense.
goes.
Yeah, totally makes sense. Okay, so what we're gonna close with this.
Sure.
Just 2 little things. One, which one of you is the wilder? Who's hornier, and why is it Nikki?
It is Nikki.
Duh.
Um,
No.
I
Yeah,
would
no.
say. I mean, I think we're both pretty fun, and I think we're both explorative. I put myself in more situations, and I'm willing to explore more. Where I think
Yeah,
Kimmy's a little bit more like, you know, but I do think there's the possibility that one day, as she continues to grow in herself, she will find more of the things that she likes.
No,
yeah, totally.
I like the way I explore. Sometimes,
She just takes it slower.
yeah, I would say I take it slower with my exploration. I kind of like if I'm focusing on just like hooking up and stuff, like yeah, I have a lot of fun. I'll have my own little roster, and it's super chill. Really like it. And then when when I'm looking for partnership, when I have a partner, which right now I like sort of have a partner ish.
I
Right.
wouldn't call it a
It's like a
partnership.
weird.
They're friends.
Yeah, it's a weird situation. Anyways, so but like mostly like right now, like let's say right now, mostly focusing on myself. I've got some other things that I'm, putting my focus towards. Um, but I like building friendships. I like exploring my kink. sometimes if I don't have the time to, like, Nikki lives for her Google Calendar, and so do I.
I wasn't
Um,
gonna
I
say it again, but
Yeah, I love Google Calendar. Yeah, for sure. No, but I mean, I mainly like during the times that I've had, maybe more casual partnerships, I've stuck to like maybe 3 or 4. That's usually been my limit.
yeah,
Um,
right.
yeah.
I mean, and so that makes me want to ask Nikki. Most people are out here like struggling on fucking Bumble and like Tinder and all. They can't even find like a partner, right? And you've got fucking 8 motherfuckers in your shit, right? So whether someone's looking for a partner or they're looking for 8 partners, give them some advice on how to be more like on it, like how to actually like get a fucking partner or a dozen or whatever.
Well, I think the key is like removing the expectation of structure is because I think a lot of the reasons why like I have like my consistent people that like I hang out with and have sex with and talk with occasionally and like all those things like my casual relationships with them is because there's not like this pressure that this has to lead to like we're gonna date and one day we're gonna get married and we're gonna have kids and move in together and like all these things. So there's not so much pressure on these relationships. So
Yeah.
instead, we can just, like I said, we enjoy the time together when we spend it together. We talk every now and then and check in with each other. It's like some of them obviously they are more serious, so like we put more like emotional stuff into it, but still like the when you remove the expectation of the relationship escalator, it makes it feel a lot more like relaxed and open and something that's much more manageable than having to like commit to a full relationship, I would say. So if you go into the relationship and you're okay with a casual, get to know each other, become friends, have some fun sex here and there, maybe go out for sushi when we want to, like if you're okay with that, and the other person is too, like it's just gonna feel a lot more like liberating rather than like going into it and like, hey, I'm looking for like marriage, kids, and a house. And then they're
Yeah.
like, well, shit, I don't know if I want that, or like, I don't know if I want that with you. Because sometimes it's not, that they don't, you want the same thing, but it doesn't work out with each other. So yeah, I think that's, like I said, these are all casual relationships. Some of them are
Yeah.
extremely casual where it's like very sporadic, but, like a fun thing nonetheless.
Well, I
Right.
think it's important to start any new thing as a friend.
Yeah.
Like,
Sure.
I think
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
better, like, if people like, let's say when you go into the dating scene, go into it just being like, "You know what? I wanna make a new connection and see where it goes." It's like,
Mhm.
like some of the I remember, this one influencer, It's Me Tinks, she was like, some people worry so much about like, "Oh, do they like me?" But also, like, turn around, look at yourself, and then ask yourself, "But do I like them?"
Yeah.
So it's, I
Right.
think a lot of the times when people go into dating, it's like, you meet someone, you like them, and then all of a sudden you like have this like, fantasy of like, "Oh, what could this be? Let's make it this. I want this. I want this." But it's like, just take a breather, get to know them a little bit more,
Yeah.
see how you vibe, and take it slow. Don't rush into it.
And I think like another like very important distinction to make is like I said, none of these partners are people that I'm like building a life with.
Right.
So they're all really great relationships, but it's not as if like when I'm making travel plans to go somewhere, I'm like, okay, this is the person's coming with me. We're gonna go together. We're gonna make this decision together. Those things. So yeah, I mean, there are nights where I'm like, oh, I want to go do this, and like, they're all doing their own things, and like they're busy, and then so I just go do it on
Sure.
my own, or maybe I go on a date or whatever. Like, it's not as if like these are all relationships where I'm making constant decisions with these people. So
Well,
I
yeah,
think that
because
yeah,
right now you're like practicing solo poly.
yeah, I'm just kind of like doing my own thing, and then when I make time for those people and we do things together, like it's great, we have
Yeah.
fun, all that. But then like aside from that, like that's it. So.
Well, I just feel like on the dating apps, everybody has like these prerequisite things that they want and they need. And, you'll be talking to someone and they're like, so what do you want? And you're like, I'm not really. And they're like, see ya. Like, like bye. And they like go on to that. So I feel like for men and women, it's difficult. I'm a huge fan of just fucking friend zoning everyone right off the rip. I think it's like the best thing you can do because if they escape out of there, then hey, there you go. Like you made it out of the fucking phantom zone. Like, yeah, sure, let's roll with it. But I do think that um that's a great point is to like have a connection first, then worry about that other shit later. And also too, like talking to someone, going on a date with someone, it's not a fucking audition, right? Like their stuff is more important, like you said, like, do you like them? I think that's fucking huge.
Yeah.
Okay, so in closing, what is something you want, all these normal people to take away about non-monogamy, right? Like if you could just automatically give one piece of knowledge to everyone, what would it be?
I would say that it's not something to fear, and it's not something that's so weird or so off. And that just because, like, taking the time to understand it and support it doesn't mean that you have to practice it. That's another thing, too. So I don't know. I feel like sometimes people look at non-monogamy and they're like, well, if I agree with that, then that means that like I'm going to be in a non-monogamous relationship, and like that's weird. Society doesn't agree with that. Everyone should be monogamous. Like I say, like instead, leave yourself open to like understand like that's an option if you choose to accept it and to practice it.
Yeah.
But like at the end of the day, like that's all it is, and it is a valid option, just like monogamy. So.
Cami, any thoughts
I would say the world would benefit so much more if
from gummy
we were
bears?
all more open-minded and sexually liberated.
Mhm.
So I think it's important, especially if you never heard of non-monogamy, or if you're just now hearing about it, just keep an open mind. Like Nikki said, if you're educating yourself on it doesn't mean that you're practicing it. So leave an open mind, right? I mean, if you're like, I don't know, let's say you really like plants all of a sudden, and now you're just getting to know some plants. Doesn't make you a full-blown botanist.
Yeah.
Like, no, you're just interested in something. You're just wanting to know more information.
And get a
Sure.
different perspective. It's okay to
Yeah.
understand a different perspective of like the
Yeah.
options that are out there.
And I would say, I mean, like, if you have friends or, family who are maybe practicing non-monogamy, like, definitely don't shame them for that either. Just keep an open mind, and, if you have
Support them.
yeah, support them. If you have any questions, ask. You can always,
Sure.
there's power in agreeing to disagree. I think people forget that. So yeah,
True.
I feel like as I've, the more I learn about non-monogamy, the more I, immerse myself in the world as, an ally, and, maybe as a possible participator at one point. The more I see it's all about building that own definition in your mind about what you want from your relationships, and what you want, what you value, and what hope to achieve. So.
Awesome. Awesome. Nikki and Cami, the Double Teamed podcast. So where can people find the show? What's coming up on the show?
Ooh, yes. So I just created our website,
Ooh.
doubleteamedpodcast.com. Yeah, go send me an email for the awesome job that I did. But within the website, you can find all relevant links. There's even a form if you have any questions.
We're on Spotify, Apple, anywhere you can find podcasts. We're on Instagram and TikTok at Double Teamed Podcast, Twitter, and Reddit at Double Teamed Pod. And then also we are launching a Patreon. And
we have our YouTube page.
Oh yeah, our YouTube page, Double Teamed Podcast, which is I have a couple videos up on there now, but it's like my latest project, so it doesn't have all of them.
Right.
But it does have a few of our episodes as well.
And all this stuff will be linked in the show notes, wherever
thank you.
you're listening or watching this. And that's really awesome that you're doing the Reddit thing, and people can like reach out via email with questions. Like, I applaud what you guys are doing. I love it. Thank you so much for being on Sex Party. I look forward to seeing you guys again in the future.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for having us. This was fun.
For sure.
Conversation.
See you soon.
Okay.
Huge thanks once again to Niki and Cami from the Double Team podcast for being a part of my first two-parter here on Sex Party. Hope you guys enjoyed parts 1, parts 2. Hope you guys learned some things. Hope you guys got excited about some things. If you're pumped, if you are excited, and you're listening on Apple and Spotify, it would mean a lot. It would help the show if you could subscribe, if you could leave a review, if you could, I don't know, send it around the internet to people you think would be interested. Hey, that would be great. You don't have to do anything. But if you're enjoying yourself, I would appreciate that quite a bit. If you are watching on YouTube, hello, how are you? You can like the video, you could comment on the video, you can subscribe on YouTube. You guys, we pulled it off. It's our first 2-part episode. It was fun. It was wild. Tons of surprises. I know everybody says that, but I mean it. Tons of surprises coming up. I will see you right back here next week.
Thanks for listening. The party continues next week. Click subscribe and let's make this a regular thing. Follow the show on Instagram and Twitter @SexPartyFM. Follow Dustin @Dustin Rybka.